Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Town Shirts YouTube channel. Firstly, I want to say thank you to over 2,500 people so far who have viewed my retain list that I released this week. If you haven't seen that already, link is in the description for you to check that out. The club today have released their official list, so we will see how my list compared to theirs as we check out the official Mansfield Town retained list. In this video, we will be reacting to every name now the official list is out. Were there any shocks, any snubs, anyone we weren't expecting? Have the club bottled some decisions? Let's find out. So as you can see behind me, we have the official retained list for Mansfield Town for the next season in League One. Let's see then who we have retained, and we'll compare a little bit to what I thought in my list that I did this week. So we'll see. We're starting with the retained and under contract, should I say, which is a reasonably simple one. Keanu Bacchus is obviously an obvious one. He was under contract, potentially a bit of interest from elsewhere, but yeah, he was an obvious one. Fraser Blake Tracy, again, a bit of an obvious one. Very injury prone last season, but we expected him to be among the names for next season. I think George Cooper's an interesting one. He wasn't actually in my list. I'm not suggesting I'd forgotten of his existence, but he hasn't been involved at all this season, the young centre-half. So interesting to see. I would imagine he goes out on loan next season. I don't see him being around for next season, certainly in the first team. James Gale, we spoke about him. I wasn't sure whether he was under contract or not. Couldn't really find anything, but he is under contract, which is good news. And for me, he should be a back and part of the first team squad in some way. Not a starter, I certainly don't think, but he probably should be involved in some way, shape or form. James Gale. Will Evans, we knew about, which is great. Top goal scorer this season as well. Really good player, and will be good for us next season, absolutely no doubt. George Maris is a good one that I was debating, as I said on the first video, whether or not he was under contract or not, but I stuck him as if he wasn't, just in case. But he is under contract and will be retained next season. Owen Mason is another one that's under contract, which absolutely is good news, because I think he'll challenge, and we'll get to goalkeepers later on. But yeah, I'm hoping that he can challenge for a first team spot at some point, or at least be involved in some cup games and the like next season. So the final name on our retained and under contract list is Deji Ashalaja, player of the season, scooped 99% of the awards as well at the award due this weekend, and someone to build the team around for next season. So other than I wasn't sure on a couple of names and a bit of a surprise seeing George Cooper's name back in there, there's no surprises for the under contract category. So this is where things get a little bit more exciting as we move into options triggered. So these are players who were under contract last season, and as part of their contract, whenever it was signed, had the option for the club to trigger another year of the deal. So essentially they're now under contract until the end of the 25-26 season. First name on that list is Bailey Cargill. Absolutely no surprise there. Been brilliant in defence. I don't think anyone's going to have any issues or queries around Bailey Cargill at all. Elliot Hewitt's an interesting one for me. I had him down in the release category purely because he hasn't been the same since he come back from injury and had player of the season before he got injured. So undoubted quality, but for me had been a little bit too injury prone. I was a bit 50-50 with Elliot. I'm not disappointed to see him around next season. I don't think we've probably got the funds to do a rebuild that includes getting rid of the likes of Hewitt and a few others that are to come. I think it's a 50-50 split, and Clough's made the decision to keep him, so not completely annoyed with that one. The next one for me is a little bit interesting in Aaron Lewis. For me, again, another player that I had on the release list. I was a bit more certain about this one than I was with Elliot Hewitt. I thought that Aaron Lewis hadn't done enough to earn a contract. I didn't see him potentially being a League One player, or starter at least. Potentially someone that Clough wants around the squad. Can play at wing back, although we've not seen it, weirdly, and even though we played wing backs in the five at the back system, he hasn't played there for Mansfield really, other than maybe the odd appearance. But again, probably someone that Clough wants in and around the squad. But for me, I would have probably been a little bit more ruthless and let Aaron Lewis go. But again, you have to go with what Clough's said. This is a real talking point for me, Rhys Oates, and that's why his shirt is up there. For me, it's a mistake. Who am I to judge what Nigel Clough and the club want? But this is an opinion a video of opinions, and we're all entitled to them. For me, Rhys Oates has had 2 seasons where he's not really featured. He's had long-term injury after long-term injury. He's come back for a game, then got injured again. Hasn't ever proved it in League One, and I'm not sure that is his level. Hopefully he proves me wrong, and this time next year we might be sat here him as the top goal scorer, who knows. But for me, it was a mistake, and I think we can't rely on players like Rhys Oates, who are far too injury prone. And we keep him, and then we don't make another signing, or we have another player who can't register because we've got Oates, and then he gets injured again. For me, it's a bit of a predictable thing, but we'll go with Nigel, of course, on this one. But yeah, for me, Rhys Oates, a bit of a mistake. That wouldn't, unless we sell him, unless we've done the option to sell him. But I think with his injuries, I can't see anyone buying him. Reed, for me, is a no-brainer. I think he... very good passer of the ball, has really struggled this season with the midfield being as weak as it has been, and the system, as we talked about in my previous video. You'll see the link in the description for that. He's for me, is quality. Very good player, great on the ball, great passer. Is an absolute no-brainer for me. That's the end of the options triggered. The 2 really that are a bit contentious for me being Aaron Lewis and Rhys Oates. I had Hewitt down to go as well, but we probably haven't got the rebuild budget to get rid of everyone that we probably wanted to. But yeah, Lewis and Oates for me is a big surprise that we've triggered their options. We move swiftly on now then to contract discussions underway. So these are players that the club are clearly in discussions with about signing a new contract. So at this point we don't know whether they will or won't, but we're going to assume that they will, and we'll discuss it as such. First one being Jordan Bowery. A little bit disappointing that the club didn't have an option on him, and that we couldn't tie him down immediately, because I think he's absolutely worth it. I've seen some interesting comments on Bowery that we might touch on a little bit later that I don't quite understand. I think he's been fantastic and absolutely would love him to sign for another season. Dom Dwyer is a really positive one. I talked in the previous video about how much I thought he was worth a punt, and I think it's great to see that Nigel has seen that in 4 goals in 9 games. I think that he's clearly got that goal scorer's instinct. It'll be great to see him in and around the squad next season. So yeah, let's hope those contract discussions go the way we want them to and he signs. Lee Gregory again is somebody that I had down to stay, and I think despite injury towards the end of last season, without his goals we would have been relegated. Absolutely certain of that one. He's got a lot of goals early in the season, and if we can get him fit for another year, he's probably only got another year in him probably at this level. If he can get into double figures, then fantastic. So let's hope that he gets fit and he signs the contract and we move on with Lee. Steve McLaughlin again disappointed really that the club hasn't got an option, that we couldn't get something done without having it to sort of expire almost and then discuss it with him. One of my best players for last season. I think he definitely needs to stay, and he seems to love the club. He was talking in the interview about whether he get an offer or not, so the offer's clearly there. So let's hope Macca signs it. The last one in contract discussions is an interesting one for me. Scott Flinders. I think now we know that Christy Pym's going after his Instagram post this weekend. That he's going and leaving the club. That maybe the club felt we needed to keep one of the 2 in the main goalkeeping units and maybe just get a new first choice in with maybe the likes of Flinders and Mason battling it out for that sort of second goalkeeper spot. For me, it's an interesting one. I had Flinders in release, but that's no criticism of Scott Flinders. Very experienced. We have got Adam Collin as a goalkeeping coach, so maybe Scott Flinders might do some work alongside him as well. But for now, we have to assume it's a playing role. And maybe with Flinders and Mason and a new number 1, it might turn out to be a good decision. But they're all the contract discussions underway. I think the only surprise for me was Scott Flinders. The next category is a really simple one. It's loans expired. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Individually, you can see there that all 4 of our loanees, Craig, Rhodes, Vickers and Wayne, have gone back to their respective clubs: Tottenham, Blackpool, Brighton and Plymouth. No indication of who we might try and re-sign. For me, Vickers would be the only one out of that lot that I would try and keep. He also may be the one that's hardest to try and keep, so I guess we'll keep an eye out on who Clough is interested in signing, if any, out of those. But I wouldn't have thought, Craig being too injury prone, Rhodes and Wayne have just not performed, and Vickers has been brilliant, albeit a little bit lightweight at times, but very, very skillful. So I would suggest we probably will try and re-sign Vickers if at all possible. So the interesting bit for me, released. Who has been released from the club? Does it match up with what I have suggested or what I thought. Let's have a look. So the first one, Hiram Boateng, had to be expected. I had game time, but really on and off. And I think really hadn't necessarily impressed Nigel on the pitch. Had mentioned a few poor performances. Mentioned it at the evening with Nigel Clough when I went there. He mentioned about Boateng's poor performances. So, yeah, for me, he's not really surprised. Didn't really work out at Mansfield, if we're being brutally honest. Obviously got promoted and scored a hat-trick against Harrogate, but it's not really worked out, unfortunately for Hiram. And I really did like him as a player, but we wish all of these players good luck in finding new clubs. The next one, Aidan Flint. Not really a surprise for me. I think we all thought the writing was a little bit on the wall with Aidan. I again had him to be released. I thought he was getting to a stage where I didn't necessarily think he wanted to be here towards the end. But then all of a sudden put in 3 or 4 great performances in the last few games. So, maybe I'm wide of the mark with that. But his age and potentially pace was causing an issue. So for me, I think we could probably all see that coming. Not the most surprising name to go, although a few did see on social media they were a little bit surprised, but not for me. This next one is a bit of a surprise for me. Alfie Kilgore. That's why I've got his shirt behind me. I was a little bit surprised. I'm not completely devastated. I think it's a shame that we didn't give him the same chances that we've given to, for example, to Rhys Oates, where we've clearly given Oates a chance following injury. We haven't really given Alfie Kilgore a chance. He only came back in sort of October time against Blackpool, and has probably just about got in double figures of games maybe. But yeah, he has made the odd mistake. Of course he has, against Rotherham away, for example. But I don't know. I thought he may have been worth another season just to be in and around the squad and get fit, another pre-season. But Clough has decided, or maybe the players decided, that it was a time to move on. So we wish Alfie all our best, of course, as we do with all the players. But yeah, that's a bit of a surprise for me. Callum McDonald, not a surprise at all. I had him down in the keep section, but that was only my own personal opinion. It wasn't what I thought Nigel would do. I would have bet everything I had that he would be released. I didn't see, even though he played okay in some games, when he'd had the very, very limited chance, I had a feeling that Nigel didn't quite rate him, and yeah, he's that's been reflected in the release list, hasn't it? Tom Nichols, not a surprise. I didn't really put him in the tier list because it was obvious that he was going to go. Been on loan at Swindon, so he is out, and that's not a surprise. I think that was the writing was on the cards there, wasn't it? Christy Pym we knew about because he had announced already at the weekend that he was leaving the club. So we hear that Wigan is the destination, I believe. So we might see him again next season if they lose Tickle, their goalkeeper, who's been fantastic for them. I think he was in the team of the season. So I would assume that he's off if Christy Pym is going there. Again, good player for Stags, but it was pretty obvious, I thought, towards the end of the season, especially when Mason and Flinders were playing, that Pym was going to leave the club. Next name is a bit of a surprise, I guess. Ben Quinn. Maybe we could have loaned him out next season. He certainly wasn't trouble in the first team. And him, and as you can see there, Stephen Quinn, which we knew about, have left the club. Bit of a shame with Ben because he looked really, really bright in pre-season. Played a few games early on in the season. Scored the odd goal in pre-season. Played against Bolton, I remember the Carabao Cup. Really disappointing at Stevenage in the FA Cup, and I think he hadn't played since then. So was the writing on the wall? Maybe. He's young, so I thought maybe they might give him another season to develop, but we have been ruthless in that department this year, so he is gone. The final name on this list in terms of being released is George Williams, which again I don't think is a surprise that he's released him. He has played sporadically, has been injured. We know about the personal problems and the really traumatic year that he's had, and take your hats off to him whenever he's come in. For me, he's played okay. The odd mistake recently, the last couple of games, but I had him down in the release category. I didn't think he was going to stay, and Nigel has obviously confirmed that in this list. So some good players in there, and some players who really did help last season. You look at Aidan Flint, you look at Kilgore from 2 seasons ago. You look at Nichols scored the odd goal last season. Pym was a real mainstay. Quinny's been here for 4 or 5 seasons. So there's some big names leaving the club, and it's a big rebuild. To have 9 players on the release list, and 4 going back as loan expiries as well. I think we predicted this anyway, but there's going to be a lot of new players required at the Stags. It is worth noting that the club have made a few comments at the bottom. We're certainly not going to touch on this particular one on Lucas Akins, but it does say that they will be considering their position and will make no further comments. So there's no update on Akins, and the club placed on record its thanks to players now leaving the one call and wishes them well in their future careers, as do we all as Stags fans. Be interesting to know what your thoughts are. We'll look at some of the comments that we've seen on social media, but it'd be interesting to really see your thoughts in the comments as to how you feel that this release list has reflected how the club is looking to go next season. Could it have been more? Do we think we could have been more ruthless with a couple of the names on here? I think potentially yes. Lewis, Oates, potentially Hewitt, and Flinders. But yeah, interested to know your thoughts. If you could let me know down in the comment below. Drop the video a like as well and subscribe if you haven't. It's really, really important, and it's really, really appreciated as well. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, it's a big old summer ahead for the Stags after seeing this list. So to round off the video, I did say I would look at a few social media comments, some of them from my post earlier and some from the club's official post. So we've got surprised by Kilgore. Again, maybe me a little bit agree with that. Please sign a contract, Maka. Again, massively agree with that one. We absolutely need to get him signed for me. Surprised getting rid of Ben Quinn, Boateng and Kilgore. Don't see the point in offering a contract to Oates. It's very similar to what I was talking about earlier, but I am not surprised by Quinn or Boateng. Kilgore a little bit, not Ben Quinn or Boateng for me. Gutted for George Williams, never got a chance. No, I agree with that a little bit. Was injured quite a bit, but again, didn't really get a run of games in the team. A little surprised with Kilgore, but he's looked well off it since coming back. I would agree with that, albeit so has other players who have been offered a deal. Hewitt, Oates, again, Oates has not been back at it at all, and Hewitt has not looked the same player either. Surprised keeping Oates, hasn't been fit for 2 seasons, although he's a good player when available. Matching my sentiment again, and I think mentioned by a few in there as well. But yeah, fantastic player and he's available, but is he League One and is he going to come back strong enough? Don't know. Some shot releases there, especially Kilgore and Flint. I think they're the two that surprised a lot of people. So yeah, I think they're probably the two that people are surprised about. These last 2 comments are very, very fitting and very true. Nigel and his staff know more about the squad and the direction they want to go than any of us, so we just have to trust the list. You might go, well, what's the point in the video then? Well, it's an opinion, and I'm trying to capture some other fans' opinion on here. But yeah, absolutely, Nigel does know a hell of a lot more than I do about football management for a start, and also about the players. So absolutely agree with that. And then the final one, fairly agreeable that all the best to those moving on. They've been fantastic in getting us to League One. So absolutely agree with a lot of those comments. Some of them not so agree with, but we can all agree, I think, that a big thank you is deserved to all these players who are moving on, because they've done absolutely superbly in not only getting us to League One, but also keeping us in the league. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. Incredible support in the previous video, 2,500 views, which is far in excess of the videos that I've done before. So really, really appreciate that. If you could like the video as well and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We've had a massive influx of new subscribers, and as we head for that road to aim for that road to 1,000 subscribers, we've had a lot of advancement in the last few days. So if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't, or tell somebody else who might be interested in the videos, it would be massively appreciated. So now that the retained list is out, we can look forward to the off-season. There'll be a lot more videos to come, weekly uploads on the channel throughout the off-season, then into pre-season, and then into another season for the Stags in League One. Thank you very much for watching.